I was watching the second season of Demon Slayer recently, and of course, I noticed an insane level of Deus Ex Machinas, especially in the last few episodes. I was watching our main character get both physically and mentally tortured by a demon. The most powerful member of their team was down for the count from the poison in his system and absolutely butchered. One of his friends was stabbed through the heart, and the other was crushed under a burning building. The two demons seemed little worse for wear, and Tanjiro was on his own with his sister in a coma beside him. How do they get out of this problem? Well, firstly, Tanjiro pulls out one of those 3000 IQ plays like he usually does when he's outmatched. Even still, though, it isn't enough. The second sibling still has her head, and the one he has under his sword wasn't decapitated either. That is when Zenitsu explodes from the wreckage of the house and pulls out a super move called Godlike Speed, which allows him to single-handedly almost decapitate the second demon he'd been struggling with the entire time with the help of his fatally wounded ally. Even still, it wasn't enough. Both demons had their heads, and the most dangerous one managed to get Tanjiro off of him. The demon is a millimeter away from stabbing Tanjiro through the eye with his scythe when, out of nowhere, the Hashira comes back in with one hand and blocks the blow. We learn that he forcefully stopped the beating of his own heart to stop the poison from killing him, restarted it, and is now in better shape than ever. That is when the Hashira and Tanjiro go for the demon's head, and the Hashira pulls out a secret move that turns the demon's moves into a song in his mind that allows him to somehow read his moves. With that in play, they eventually pin him down to the point that Tanjiro, with a blade through the bottom of his mouth, gets another swing at the demon. It doesn't behead him, and the sister still isn't decapitated either. Zenitsu is running out of power, and he is about to fail when Inosuke comes flying out of nowhere and swings at her head too. He triumphantly yells that he wasn't stabbed through the heart because he rearranged his internal organs and is unaffected by the poison because he lived on a mountain. Even still, the fight is not won. Tanjiro is struggling to cut off the demon's head, and he has nowhere to go. That's when he goes even further beyond, forcing his scar to change into an entirely new form, and this gives him the power to finally finish off the demon. This is only in a single episode, and the amount of Deus Ex Machinas increases even more throughout the rest of them, but something really strange happened over the course of this episode. The Deus Ex Machinas didn't ruin the tension for me. One after the other, they kept coming up with even more illogical, contrived solutions to problems that shouldn't have been solvable, and I was getting more hyped by every single one of them. It made no sense. I'm usually the type of person who doesn't enjoy that kind of storytelling. I like everything to be as realistic as possible when it comes to interactions and consequences. But that seemed to not be the case with this season in particular. This perplexed me, and I went to the reaction videos of other people and watched how they reacted to the scene as well. Now, my expectations for the critical thinking of most reactors isn't very high, but everyone was unanimously getting hyped by the same Deus Ex Machinas as myself. This leaves me with a very interesting question. How the hell did Demon Slayer take a writing strategy that is usually frowned upon and advised to be used as sparingly as possible and somehow turn it into something that didn't ruin the story for so many people? My answer, as dubious as it might sound, is that they used it so often and so brazenly that they managed to turn Deus Ex Machinas into their bitch. The Demon Slayer story is extremely basic, but they lean into that basicness so much that it almost seems to be something like a parody for the genre. Every single solution to a problem is made so insanely illogical and seemingly stupid that it goes beyond the realm of something that ruins the story and into the realm of hilarity. The story so obviously doesn't care about logical explanations that, instead of snapping my suspension of disbelief, They managed to take it away entirely and made me care just as little about their explanations as they did. Now, yes, I realize that saying this might seem like an unintelligent thing to say for someone who is trying to break down characters, stories, and the writing process into something that can be displayed comprehensively to other people, but sometimes you have to point out the exceptions. And Demon Slayer, despite bashing supposed narrative missteps until they were beaten, maimed, and crippled, turning me into a mindless buffoon in the process, managed to not break the tension and the adrenaline I got from watching the show, and that is, against all odds, impressive.